Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight, a ceasefire on top of a ceasefire. Israel and Lebanon agreeing to a 10-day ceasefire today, all as this fragile other ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran continues to hold. But what does lasting peace look like?
Iran wants to make a deal, and we're dealing very nicely with them. We've got to have no nuclear weapons. If we do, that's a big factor.
Then an apparent murder-suicide involving a one-time rising star of the Democratic Party. Police say they think the former lieutenant governor of Virginia killed his wife before taking his own life. The latest on that case. And video showing a violent arrest by the NYPD going viral. More on the undercover operation that has now turned into an investigation into police use of force. Then, less than a week after returning to Earth, the Artemis crew is settling back to normal gravity and sharing some of their favorite moments from that historic mission. And in tonight's Future of Everything, we're going to sit down with an influencer who seems to have a knack for short-circuiting ChatGPT over and over and over again.
Which month in the year is spelt with an X?
And that would be December. It's got that X right in the middle, like a little holiday surprise.
Okay, perfect.
And tonight, we start with this plan for peace in the Middle East, this 10-day ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel officially going into effect just a few hours ago. Now, President Trump was the first to announce the news. Then Israeli and Lebanese officials later confirmed they had that deal.
It's a very nice little package for about a week, and we're not going to have lots of bombs dropping, and we're going to see if we can make peace between Lebanon and Israel.
The president went on to say he invited the leaders of both countries to the White House for meaningful talks. He also hinted that Iran talks might also happen this weekend. And he's also open to even heading to Pakistan, where the talks have been taking place, to close the deal.
If the deal is signed in Islamabad, I might go. The field marshal has been great. The prime minister has been really great in Pakistan. So I might go. They want me.
Now, Lebanon has been hit hard in the last few weeks. In fact, just several hours before today's ceasefire went into effect, Lebanese media saying that the IDF completely destroyed a bridge there. Officials say over 1 million people in that country so far have been displaced during the fighting. But it doesn't look like people can just go back to their homes yet. Earlier today, Netanyahu clarifying his terms of the ceasefire, saying Israel has not agreed to withdraw from southern Lebanon. And let's get straight out to NBC's Richard Engel, who is in Tel Aviv for us tonight. Richard, a very big day. Don't want to understate that, but there are ceasefires that turn into peace, and then there are others that are just quick pauses in fighting. What does this one feel like?
Well, there are a lot of risks. So I'll tell you what the risks are and why both sides also have an incentive for it not to escalate. The risks are primarily the fact that Hezbollah says that it will keep fighting as long as Israeli troops remain in the country, that it has the right to resist Israel's presence in Lebanon. And Israel says, according to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, that Israel will not pull its troops out of the country. So there is this pause, a 10-day pause that is in effect right now. So the missiles have stopped or the rockets have stopped from Hezbollah. Israeli attacks in Lebanon have stopped. Both sides have agreed to this 10-day ceasefire. But as long as you have Israeli heavy equipment, Israeli tanks on the ground, there is a possibility that things could escalate and could escalate quickly, especially when Hezbollah is underlining that point, saying that as long as Israeli troops are on the ground, that Hezbollah has the right to resist. So there is certainly a possibility that this escalates and could escalate quite quickly and break down. But the reason that it might not break down is because of the Iran factor. Iran and the United States are working to make a deal. Pakistan is mediating that agreement, and it seems like the U.S. and Iran are now anxious to make a deal. They want to make a deal, and finding a truce in in Lebanon was a major component, where the deal seems to be hinging on the fact that there would be a truce in Lebanon. So when you combine the military pressure that has been put on Hezbollah from Israel, now political pressure from Iran as well, it seems that there could be a possibility that this could last at least for the next 10 days. And we're going to see more attempts to solidify this agreement even more. Because, God, if you notice, this agreement was not between Hezbollah and Israel or Hezbollah and the United States. It was between Israel and the Lebanese government. And the Lebanese government does not support Hezbollah. But if you get the Israeli government and the Lebanese government working together, it puts Hezbollah in a much weaker position. They are being pressured both from within and from without. So there are a lot of things that could go wrong, but there are quite a few incentives for this peace process to last and for the truce to hold.
From way over here, it does seem like this is somewhat of a change of course for Benjamin Netanyahu. How did that come about?
Well, the reading here is that he was pressured into doing this by President Trump, because Israeli officials have been saying all along that the Lebanon campaign is separate from the Iran war, that Israel is going to stay in Lebanon for as long as is necessary, that it will insist that Hezbollah be completely disarmed, that Israel will carve out a buffer zone and carry out attacks inside Lebanon when and where it decides that they are necessary. That was Israel's position up until a few hours ago. But it seems that the Iranians, the Pakistanis, people who are trying to push the deal between Washington and Tehran forward, felt that there would be no deal with Iran unless there was a truce, unless there was a cessation of hostilities in Lebanon. So I think that's really what pushed it over the line, a desire from both Iran and President Trump to reach a deal, and Lebanon was getting in the way of that.
And Richard, you know, this one has a time of 10 days, right? So we have the clock running now with 10 days. Does that all of a sudden expedite the peace talks between the United States and Iran?
That does. Gas prices do. The expensive partial blockade of the Strait of Hormuz does. President Trump has many motivations and incentives to wrap this war up. He thought it was going to be quick. He described it as basically won on the first day. President Trump said that repeatedly, that after the U.S. and Israel launched the surprise attack against Iran, killed the supreme leader, he said that the military objectives were basically achieved on day one. But the war has continued. It is becoming more and more expensive. Opinion polls show it is not popular in the United States. So all of these things together pushed, I think, Israel and the Lebanese government to reach some sort of deal. And for now, it's only a few hours into it, it's holding, and there are celebrations in Beirut, and thousands of people are leaving Beirut, heading south to see if anything is left of their homes.
Yeah, fingers crossed peace prevails. Richard Engel, thank you. Meanwhile, the U.S. military says they have turned around 14 ships since launching its blockade of Iranian ports. In a briefing a little bit earlier, the Pentagon issuing this warning to Iran.
We're watching you. Our capabilities are not the same, our military and yours. Remember, this is not a fair fight. And we know what military assets you are moving and where you are moving them to.
Now, all this happening as the Strait of Hormuz is once again in focus, that critical shipping waterway. The president started his blockade on Monday after negotiations with Iran apparently failed to produce an agreement to end the war. But Iran, they've got their own version of the blockade of the Strait, and they're currently charging ships pretty hefty fees to pass through. So how exactly does one blockade another blockade? For more on this, let's bring in NBC News military analyst Colonel Steve Warren. Colonel, great to see you. First, let's play some of these comments from General Kane here.
Let me be clear. This blockade applies to all ships, regardless of nationality, heading into or from Iranian ports. The U.S. action is a blockade of Iran's ports and coastline, not a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
A technical point there, not a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, but a blockade of Iranian ports. Can you give us more context on what this whole operation looks like? And are there a lot of U.S. Navy assets beyond the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf proper right now that can enforce something like this?
Yeah, it was a very important point, I think, that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff made today, and it's worth emphasizing. So I think of this as a blockade of Iran, right? The U.S. Navy is blockading Iran. It is preventing shipping from entering or leaving any part of Iranian ports, their coastline, et cetera. And that's a ship from any nation, an Iranian ship or a ship flagged from any other nation. If it's touched Iran, then it's not allowed through this blockade. Whereas any other ship in the Persian Gulf that wants to transit the straits, as far as the United States is concerned, they are free to do so. Now, there are other issues that we can get into. To your broader question, Gadi, on how are we doing this? Well, the chairman explained a little bit today. There are about a dozen U.S. warships, primarily destroyers, enforcing this blockade. A destroyer is a great warship, a very formidable warship, about 500 feet long, crewed by 300 people, and bristling with weapons. And what these ships do is if in this case, it's been 14 times already this has happened, when a ship is leaving an Iranian port, the Navy will get in touch with it on the radio and tell it, hey, you're not allowed through here. If that ship continues to try to go through, then the Navy can take additional steps. First, it will do flyovers, send some fighter jets over. Then it can shoot flares. It can fire warning shots. And ultimately, according to international law, it could even board one of those ships and seize control of it. So this is how we're enforcing this blockade across the entirety, of the Iranian coastline. Most of those ships are out they're not in the Persian Gulf. They're out in the, outside of the Gulf, so blocking entrance or exit from the straits.
And the Defense Secretary also said earlier that the United States, this is only 10% of its naval power focusing on this blockade, and saying that it could keep up that blockade for as long as it takes. Is it pretty sustainable?
It is sustainable, and blockades, Gadi, historically do take some time. It takes time for that sort of squeeze on the economy to really be felt in the nation that's being blockaded. And I think it's also important to note that the chairman brought up the fact that while it's 10% of the Navy's power right there in the Gulf or in and around the straits that are enforcing the majority of this blockade, he also told us that U.S. Navy assets and capabilities in the Pacific Ocean are also in some ways helping enforce this. There's something we have, and they've been around forever, Gadi, called blockade runners. And they've been around ever since, Sparta blockaded Athens or in the Peloponnesian Wars. And these are ships that will try their best. They're smugglers. They'll try to sneak through that blockade. They're part of what we refer to often as a ghost fleet. And so in the Pacific Ocean, the U.S. Navy is hunting these ghost fleet ships, unregistered, they don't use beacons, and they're sneaking around as smugglers. And so this is something that could take a while, but Gadi, the U.S. Navy has the force needed to carry it on for as long as needed.
Fascinating. I mean, Pacific is so big, and, it just adds another layer of complexity to all of this. Colonel Steve Warren, really appreciate your insight. Thank you. And let's head out to Las Vegas. It is the epicenter of hospitality and tipping for today, according to the president. President Trump visiting Vegas tonight to tout his tax policies in a city where thousands of workers, from restaurants to casinos, earn a lot of their income through tips. And let's bring in NBC senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez, who is in Vegas tonight. Gabe, great to see you. So no tax on tips. I know that was a very, very big deal during the campaign. How is that working out so far?
Well, certainly, Gotti, and I would keep my voice down because the president just started talking behind me a short time ago to several hundred of his supporters here, and he is touting what his administration sees as a huge success when it comes to this policy, no tax on tips, part of the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. And the administration is really trying to hit this economic messaging, saying that more than 53 million Americans have claimed some of the president's tax cuts as part of that bill as they file their taxes this year. Now, the president did kind of hint right now, or at least nod, to some of the struggling in messaging that Republicans have had with so much else going on, with the Iran war, with the president even today escalating his feud with Pope Leo. He actually referred to something that happened a little earlier this week, this photo op at the White House. You may have remembered it, where this DoorDash driver went to the Oval Office. The president, in a rare moment of reflection, saying that that moment seemed a little tacky in his view, and he questioned whether it was really believable, but he was trying to make the point that this is something that his administration needs to hit ahead of these midterm elections and try and convince the American public that their economic policies are working for them. But Gotti, this comes in a state like Nevada, which is seeing very high gas prices right now. Earlier today, we went to several gas stations approaching $5 a gallon for regular unleaded, and one station was at $5.09. We spoke with several drivers who were very concerned about how long this war could drag on. But here at this event, you'll hear many Trump supporters say that they are very happy with the president's policies so far. And as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just told me a few moments ago, they do expect gas prices to come down relatively quickly. Yesterday, he also mentioned that he expects $3 a gallon gas by the end of the summer, Gotti.
And we're seeing that sign behind you. It says no tax on tips. And yet there are stipulations to all of that, right?
Yeah, look, the workers can only claim up to $25,000 in tip income. They can only deduct that much. And look, we also were speaking with the culinary union earlier today with members of that union who say that while that might be a good first step, it's not nearly enough, that they criticize the administration for other policies that they say have hurt the economy here in Las Vegas, of course, an area so dependent on tourism. And, of course, it goes back to the gas prices. It's a big concern here as well. But if you talk to the president and White House officials, they don't think that some of these policies like no tax on tips and other tax deductions, tax cuts, that aren't getting enough coverage. But that is something that the Republicans are going to have to break through in the next couple of months, as we have been seeing polls that Americans trust the Trump administration less and less when it comes to the economy. And now we're seeing polls that the majority of Americans, well over 50%, don't agree with his stance on the war. Where right there, you see that those poll numbers, 57% of respondents saying that the economy is getting worse, something that the Treasury Secretary in his conversation with me just a short time ago vehemently pushed back against. He's trying to make the argument that for too long and under the previous Biden administration, there was security and prosperity were separated. And he's now saying that they're trying to make the argument that because the president is focused on national security, that will lead to prosperity, that you can't have one without the other. We shall see as this midterm campaign ramps up, Gotti.
We sure will. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez out in Vegas. Gabe, thank you. Meanwhile, some absolutely shocking news out of Virginia, where police say the state's former lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax, shot and killed his wife before turning the gun on himself. Now, both of the couple's teenagers were home when it happened, and it comes amid what the police call an ongoing domestic dispute.
At some point in time, we know Mrs. Fairfax installed several cameras inside the home. Mr. Fairfax called us to their home back in January and alleged that his wife assaulted him in the home. We were able to go to those cameras and determine that never occurred. I don't think it's a secret that there's been divorce proceedings that have been ongoing. Former Lieutenant Governor Fairfax was recently served some paperwork associated with an upcoming court proceeding that apparently led to this incident last night.
And let's bring in NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles. Ryan, walk us through what happened here. What's the latest?
Well, by any measure, Gotti, this is an awful tragedy. Police say that in the middle of the night, last night, the former lieutenant governor of Virginia, Justin Fairfax, shot and killed his wife and then turned the gun on himself. And what makes this situation even more tragic is that their two teenaged children were in the house at the time, and it was their teenage son that was forced to call 911 to tell police about what had happened. And we're going to play for you just a little bit of the dispatch call that led to police officers here coming to the scene to address the situation.
Hey, Liz. I was thinking that his dad might have stabbed his mom, saying that she's laying on the ground bleeding. You can see holes in her shirt.
Yes.
Heard a fight about a minute ago. Unknown where his father is now.
And of course, when police got here to the scene, they realized that she had not been stabbed, that she'd actually been shot. And they quickly found Justin Fairfax in a different part of the house with that gunshot wound to the head. And what police have told us and what court records have demonstrated was that this was the culmination of a bitter and contentious divorce that was driven by mental health and substance abuse problems that the former lieutenant governor was dealing with. He was once a rising star in Virginia politics. I covered the very beginning of his political career when, as an upstart young attorney, a former prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office, ran for attorney general, fell short in that race, but then came back in the following cycle and became the party's nominee for lieutenant governor and won that race. There was very high hopes for his future, but it all came crashing down amidst a sexual assault scandal where he was accused by two different women for sexual assault in the midst of another scandal that Virginia government was dealing at the time. It appears from these court documents that he never really recovered from those assault allegations, and that is what led to what happened here last night.
And Ryan, I know you talked to some of his friends or some of his people that knew him, right? What did they say today?
Well, they're horrified about this on many levels. Obviously, they're very concerned about the future of their two teenage children. They're very concerned about the family around him. They're very concerned about everything that his wife went through, who was a very accomplished dentist in her own right, a pillar of the community. But they're also very sad about the mental health breakdown that led to all of this tragedy for the Fairfax family. Listen to what one of his mentors, someone very close to him, said about that experience.
The Justin Fairfax, prior to those allegations in 2019, 2020, was a totally different person. He became reclusive in places where he had been so outgoing. Mm-hmm. He became defensive in places where he once would, cover challenges with laughter. He was a totally different person.
And obviously, Gotti, you have never have any idea what's truly going on in an individual's home, in their life all around. But I can tell you from the interactions that I had with Justin Fairfax, he was the type of person that would walk into a room and light it up. He could talk to anyone, was not afraid to engage in conversation. And everything everyone says about what happened to him in the wake of those sexual assault allegations paints a very different picture. Now, those allegations were serious. They were never fully resolved. At one point, he attempted to take a polygraph test to try and prove his innocence, and another ill-fated attempt to run for governor. But regardless, that situation marked a major turning point in his life, and that ultimately led to the end of his life, which happened here last night, Gotti.
NBC's Ryan Nobles, thanks so much. And if you or someone you know is in crisis, you can always call the suicide hotline at 988-HELP. And late today, police released an interview with actor Timothy Busfield just before he was arrested back in January. Now, you might remember Busfield was charged with 4 counts of criminal sexual contact of a minor, all of which he has pleaded not guilty to. Those charges coming from allegations of inappropriate conduct with 2 kid actors while he was filming The Cleaning Lady. Here's some of that police interview.
Warner Brothers had an outside investigation through another firm they told me that there were complaints about me with these boys, at which point, honestly, I was relieved because it was so ludicrous. Always in a group of people, always in front of their parents, always in front of the teacher. Never anything, it's disgusting, never anything of any sexual, any weird ever.
Right.
With them. Just, that's disgusting.
Let's bring in Camila Bernal to talk a little bit more about this police interview. So, Camila, what were some of the bigger takeaways from this call here?
Well, what was interesting to me was that this is really the first time that he realizes that this is going to police. He knew that Warner Brothers had looked into this and dismissed it. So he knew about the allegations, but he didn't know it had gone to police. And so the police officer basically is asking him how Hollywood works. What is it like on set? Where were the children? Where were you? So you go through all that conversation, and then the officer asks him, did you tickle the children? And he says, well, it's not uncommon. I might have done it, but it was essentially to make these children feel comfortable. But he sort of sticks to the story that we've heard after his arrest, where he says that they believe the parents of these children are upset because they were recast. And they essentially moved on to another child for the next season. And so they sort of deny all of these allegations, but they are surprised by what's going on and surprised that it's gone to police. And that's what you hear in this call. It's the first time that he talks to detectives, even though we have heard from him since all of this happened.
And his wife was also on this call, right? What do we hear from her?
Yeah, they were together in New York, so they're on speakerphone. And so she jumps in, not often, but a few times during the call to defend him and to sort of explain, because she was a child actor. So she's trying to explain this to the detective. And here's part of her jumping in.
I'm going to just jump in here, too, as the former kid actor. It's really important that the kids feel comfortable with the people they're working with. So it's just standard practice to become as friendly with them as possible so that they trust you, so they open up on screen.
So she was essentially explaining some of those actions and also saying, I was the one that bought Christmas gifts if the kids ever got any gifts from us. And I was there often and never saw anything weird or inappropriate. So she really was defending him from day one.
Yeah, we'll see how the case develops. Camila, thank you so much. And tonight, Democrats are trying to build some momentum, gaining another seat in the House. NBC News is projecting that progressive Democrat Ana Lilia Mejia wins the New Jersey special election over Republican Joe Hathaway to fill Governor Mickey Sherrill's seat. This is a big deal, given Republicans' slim majority in the House right now, and those votes are now coming in. Let's get straight over to Steve Kornacki over at the big board to walk us through the results. Great to see you, Steve. What's it looking like?
Yeah, Gotti, look, it's a win, and it's probably a pretty big margin for the Democrats here. Ana Lilia Mejia winning this thing. You see about a quarter of the vote has been counted now. More of the vote is coming from the most Democratic-friendly part of the district here. So I do suspect this margin is going to shrink some as the night goes, but not enough to make this thing competitive at all. This is something we've seen in a number of special elections to Congress right now since Donald Trump became president. This is the 7th special election to Congress we've had. The Democrats previously had been, making leaps and bounds gains in these things relative to 2024. Certainly in the most Democratic-friendly part of the district, which is right here, Essex County, sort of the eastern part of the district. I think the early numbers we're seeing are suggesting similar, large, big gains for Democrats here. Lots of Democratic energy. In the western part of the district here, Morris County, these are suburbs, bedroom communities in New York City in a lot of cases. It's a little less clear if Mejia is going to get that sort of surge level, but it's academic in terms of who's going to win the race. This will be a convincing win for Mejia. And this is also, Gotti, I think, notably within the Democratic Party, a significant story because Mejia, ran pretty far to the left. She ran very far to the left in this campaign. She was endorsed by AOC. She was endorsed by Bernie Sanders. She was a fierce critic of Israel. She won a fractured Democratic primary with only 30% of the vote. There was some question heading into this general election, of whether there was pushing things a little too far by Democrats in a district like this that not long ago was a Republican district. As I said, there are some parts of the district in these initial results where there might have been a negative reaction to Mejia. I want to see more as the results come in. But overall, this will be a very solid victory in terms of the margin for Mejia. And again, for her wing of the Democratic Party here, winning that primary was kind of an earthquake for them. It was a big upset victory for them. And now they've gotten her through the general election and on her way to Congress.
Steve Kornacki, thank you so much. And some breaking news to report right now. The Department of Homeland Security, it looks like acting ICE Director Todd Lyons is resigning. DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin says Lyons will head to the private sector and his last day will be May 31st. Lyons served as the head of ICE just a little over a year, leading the department during the fatal Minnesota shootings and scrutiny over immigration policies. And don't go anywhere. Up next, Artemis II astronauts reflecting on their historic mission to the moon with NBC's Al Roker. That conversation just ahead. Plus, NYPD officers seen punching and kicking a man who turned out to be the wrong suspect. What we're learning about that investigation coming up. Anybody from NBC LA? Can we tap into KNBC? And is Morgan around? Yeah, anybody in LA? Okay. Did you say Camilla's reading in? Okay, and we've got. Okay. All right. Chat, we got breaking news out of LA and confirmed, right? We can report it? Okay. Sorry, guys. We are working on some breaking news here. It looks like the singer David has been arrested or is identified as a suspect, not arrested. Sorry. Let me just triple check here. No, I think he has been arrested. He's been arrested, yeah. Wow. All right, we're going to be getting to that as soon as we can line some stuff up, but you guys heard it first here.
5, 4, 3.
Hey, welcome back. Here are some other headlines we are watching tonight. An internal investigation has been launched into this disturbing video out of Brooklyn, New York, showing NYPD officers punching and kicking that man. Police say the officers thought the man was a suspect in a drug deal, but he wasn't. According to Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, those officers have been placed on modified duty. And Pope Leo's brother, John Prevost, was a target of a bomb threat at his home near Chicago. Police evacuated his house and nearby homes, and they are now investigating where that call came from. And at least 17 people are dead, including a 12-year-old boy, and over 100 others were hurt following Russia's deadliest attack on Ukraine so far this year. Early this morning, Russia launched nearly 700 drones and dozens of missiles across the country. Russian media also reported a Ukrainian drone attack killed at least 2 people. All of this coming less than a week after Zelensky warned that Ukraine has almost run out of U.S.-made Patriot missiles, which make up the bulk of the country's air defense system. And in Ecuador, at least 11 people have died and more than 20 have been hurt after this bus plunged into a ravine. There was a massive fire that broke out after that crash, and the cause of the crash is still under investigation. And 3 people were killed yesterday in the latest boat strike conducted by the U.S. military on alleged drug traffickers, this time in the Pacific. The U.S. Southern Command said the boat was operated by a designated terrorist group bringing illicit drugs into the country and has been identified, and they identified the deceased only as 3 narco-terrorists. The U.S. has now killed over 150 people in boat strikes this year. We'll be right back after this quick break. All right. Okay, who do we have to go to on this?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. If we don't have anybody, can we just do a quick write-up?
You said what about Mila? Sorry.
Okay. Where are you thinking it's going to go? D? Okay. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Two minutes to standing.
And then standing is Artemis. What does this do to time? Do we want to go 3 or? Okay. 30 heavy, and then what do we have budgeted in for Artemis?
$90 back.
330. Okay. I'll keep it pretty. I'll keep it quick. Yeah. Feel free to give me like an early at like 240. Okay. Okay, cool. All right, we are still working on getting a little bit more lined up on that David case. But again, if you guys are just watching, we're working on some breaking news. We're still trying to edit everything, get everything in. So we should have that up in the next 5-10 minutes. But it looks like here in Los Angeles, the case against singer David, who, you know, for a long time, a lot of people were wondering why he wasn't arrested. His Tesla was found with the body of a girl by the name of Celeste Rivas. And so now he has been arrested in that case. Biggest question, why did it take so long when his Tesla was found with that body inside? Camila Bernal is reading in. She's making some calls, I think, and we're going to be talking to her in just a bit. But that's coming up after this. So we're going to go Artemis, and then we're going to go David, hopefully after this. But it's all in flux, so here we go.
20.
Hey, welcome back. It seems like just yesterday, but it's been almost a week since that iconic splashdown when we all watched 4 NASA astronauts return to Earth after saying hello to our nearest neighbor in the sky, that beautiful, beautiful moon of ours, humanity's first trip to the moon in over 50 years. It was a success, mission accomplished, and today we heard from the Artemis 2 crew on some of the highlights. Take a listen to this.
When the sun eclipsed behind the moon, I think all 4 of us, I turned to Victor and I said, I don't think humanity has evolved to the point of being able to comprehend what we were looking at right now.
The sense I had was this sense of fragility and feeling small, infinitesimally small, but yet this very powerful feeling as a human being. Kept seeing this like depth to, I guess, the galaxy, you know, for what we were visually observing out there, this depth to the galaxy that I just had never experienced before.
Afterwards, NBC's Al Roker got to sit down with the crew to talk a little bit more about what it was like coming home.
Welcome home. It's good to have everybody back. My gosh. So let's just throw this out. What was family reunions like once you got back?
That moment just has so much anticipation behind it. You can't imagine. I mean, I remember thinking about that moment while we were on our way to the moon. And then before you know it, there's the person that you've shared this entire experience with, that knows you better than anyone else, that you got to talk to on the mission and share things with, and they're standing right in front of you, and you come home to them.
When we got onto that ship, our support personnel, like, you always leave your passcodes to your phone behind in a little Ziploc, and I didn't expect this, but they at least had my phone unlocked, connected to the Starlink satellite network, and they had my kids' numbers already pulled up, so all I had to do was hit one button to call. And like, they just knew. They knew how important that was to us. And for them and for me, like, we are home, we are safe on Earth, and we'll see you tomorrow. What a crazy thing to get to tell your family after you just came back from the moon.
Yeah, come back from the moon. That's amazing. Take us back to the moment after you've landed in the Pacific and that hatch opens up. What was that like?
I think it was an interesting switch that flipped because we were all in a very calm mood inside the capsule by ourselves. I actually just stayed on my back for a while. I was fine, and then everyone was kind of sitting up, so I eventually sat up. We shared some snacks. We were just really relaxed in there.
What were you eating?
We were drinking eating our candy. I had a snack that I squirreled away in my spacesuit pocket, and I was like, anyone want some M&Ms?
Yeah, who gave me the peanut M&M? Was that you?
Yeah, that was me. I gave that to you, yeah. And then suddenly, when we heard they were approaching, just the adrenaline started pumping. And when that hatch opened, I was completely overcome, and I just screamed. I was so happy. It was just pure elation and just a visceral emotional reaction to not only being home, but people there coming to us and bringing us out. Just unspeakable joy.
My gosh. Talk about because we were all holding our breath. We'd heard about the heat shield. And so this moment is coming. And it happens. What was happening as we were watching you come through?
Wow, that's a lot. Because we had never seen or felt this before, everything was important. Every noise, every mechanism. I could tell that we were inside a fireball. But Reed and I had panoramic views.
We really did.
And the very first thing I thought was, is it supposed to be that big? It was a lot of fire out there. And it lasted for a long time. And it just, at some point, I just started looking across the entire flame going, well, it looks the same. And then I think we noticed very similar at the same time, little pieces flying out, but then there was a red glow in the orange, a very distinct red and bigger plume, which we later decided might be where the separation bolt interface was melting off. And then those parachutes cut away, and we went back into free fall. And it was like jumping backwards off of a skyscraper. And I felt the free fall, and then I saw the pilot chutes and then the 3 main parachutes that they pulled out. And I will say, listen, I do not say this in vain. It was a spiritual moment. And you asked earlier about the door opening. When we hit the water, we have procedures to do right after splashdown so that the parachutes don't tip us over. That was when the unfettered joy began for me. And later I tapped them. We talk about excitement a lot. People ask us if we're excited, and they know I'm kind of the curmudgeon that's like, no, I'm focused. But I think at some point I reached over and said, hey, guess what? Now I'm excited.
I remember that.
When you looked at the far side of the moon, I mean, what we saw is what we saw, but how do you even describe it?
When we saw the moon as we were getting close, maybe half the way there, and we saw part of the near side and part of the far side, and the moon still looked pretty much like it looks in the night sky, a little bit bigger, pretty much how it looks from Earth in terms of size and gazing at it against the blackness. But it wasn't the same shapes. It wasn't the same man on the moon. It looked different, and it was the first real evidence that we were somewhere completely different than where we had started. That this body that has meant so much for cultures through the years, that means so much for science, that means so much for developing our own sense of time and human consciousness, was a real celestial body that you could see from any side.
Let's do 2 if that's okay.
It wasn't just our own.
Quick.
It was its own. And we were seeing it in a new way.
We have this thing that we do, and since you're a member of the crew, you're gonna have to pull your seat over, but you don't have an act to watch. But when times get really tough, we press this little button because this red light lights up. So we just all put our hands in, and we're gonna say 3, 2, and 1 integrity. So 3, 2, 1 integrity.
Yes.
What the heck? Come on. I'm so jealous. I can't even speak. Let's bring in former NASA astronaut Steve Robinson. Steve, I mean, you were hanging out with me all week last week. If we had our watches, I would sync them up right now. What a cool moment that Al Roker had right there. But so much of what we heard today reminded me of the same types of things that you were describing last week, that idea of all of a sudden the universe has depth, and you can see that the stars, some are closer, some are further. It's not this flat panorama. We also heard the astronauts describe how just unbelievable some of those moments were, and this feeling of almost like universal connectedness. How does that resonate with you? Because I've been thinking about your words all weekend.
it's always fun to hear somebody else have this amazing experience. It's different for everybody. I didn't go to the other side of the moon, but I went on 4 missions, and I just so strongly remember exactly what Jeremy was talking about, looking out into the heavens. In fact, I remember doing this on a spacewalk. I was attached to the end of the arm, a big robot arm by my feet, and I was being moved around by my crewmates. And I looked out into the universe with the way I was facing. And you could see exactly what he was talking about. And I'm not sure why, but you could see that fact that some things are further away than others, or at least that's the sense. The universe doesn't look like a surface. The universe looks like an endless volume with little teeny things in it, and that's actually what it is. And you're the smallest thing in the whole universe, you feel like.
And yet, we're, all of us connected on that spaceship that we call Earth. Speaking of the time you were up there and the spacewalks, I mean, there's so few humans that have actually walked and flown through that void of space. And yet, when we're looking at Artemis 3, there's a potential we could see some extravehicular activity up there too, right? I mean, all of that is all to Artemis 4, but first we have to make sure that we've got all systems go for one type of spaceship interacting with the next, right?
Right. It takes the human ability, both on the inside and often on the outside. A lot of people don't know the International Space Station was put together kind of like a Legos, a whole bunch of different blocks over 15 years, piece by piece, brought up there. But when they were brought together usually with a robot arm that was being operated manually. An astronaut with a hand on 2 joysticks, bringing those modules together, locking them in place, and then all the wiring, the power, and the data, and the video, and the water, and all those different things had to be hooked up by hand on the inside and on the outside. So, it is currently impossible to build robots that can do all that. So it's essential to have humans to build a habitat that humans can live in.
And now we will see if maybe some of that modular Lego building could happen on the moon. Speaking of the space station, I just ordered a Lego version of the space station. It's supposed to come in sometime next week. Next time you're here, Steve, you got to help me build it because it's got a lot of pieces. Looks like 19 hours, so will be plenty for us to do. Steve Robinson, thank you so much. Always good to see you. And coming up, we are following some breaking news. It's coming in right now of the singer David here in Los Angeles. Apparently, he has been arrested in the murder of Celeste Rivas. Camila Bernal is going to join us with some of those details coming up next.
Clear.
Okay, here we go. Okay, Camila's coming in. Man, that was a dude. You were.
Don't let me go home.
Are you kidding me? You just walked out and you're read in? Okay, so what's the... So we have it all confirmed?
Yes.
And where did they arrest him? Do we know?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, very little details about the
it's
arrest, but we
LAPD.
can talk about the arrest.
Okay. It's crazy that it's taken this. I mean, it was his Tesla, right?
I know.
Registered to him, the
know.
trunk or the frunk. It is.
And then we can talk about the case.
Right. Okay, got
We
it.
talk about arrest first and then the case.
Okay. Cool.
Let's go back.
All right, dude, thank you so much for this, too. I know
No problem.
Okay, all right. Chat, this is how it works. I mean, journalism is, when it moves fast, it moves fast. You saw Camila just in here a little bit ago, reporting on something completely differently.
Well, thankfully, I had followed this case before.
Yes.
So that actually helps. I knew about the David case, and now we just have a few more details that will fill you guys in on.
Yeah, and so when news like this breaks, we've got we've got a newsroom, we've got an assignment desk here, assignment editors in New York as well. And so all of this comes together, we get things confirmed, and then we can go to air with confirmed information. So that's what you're about to see here, but happens very, very quickly. And then there's a bunch of editing that has to go into the tapes. There's a bunch of elements. But it is crazy. This has been a case that so many people have been watching for such a long time. And the big question has been over and over again, like, why has this singer not been named a suspect, not been arrested, given that this body was found in his car? And so we're going to be getting into that. Probably unanswerable questions right now because the investigation is still ongoing. But here we go.
5, 4, 3.
Welcome back. We are getting some more breaking news tonight right here in Los Angeles. The LAPD has arrested the singer David, who's also known as the 21-year-old David Burke, for the murder of Celeste Rivas. Now, this is a major update in an investigation into the death of a 14-year-old whose decomposed body was found in the trunk of David's Tesla last September. Let's bring in NBC's Camila Bernal, who's been following this one for us. This is a huge update, and for everybody that's been following this case since the discovery of the body in David's Tesla, the big question has always been, why has he not been named a suspect? And today he's arrested.
Yes, and I can't tell you why it took so long, but he was arrested today on suspicion of murder. He has not been charged. So this is going to be presented to the DA on Monday, so we might get some charges on Monday. And it's serious because obviously we know it's on suspicion of murder, so he might be charged with murder. We knew that they had done interviews. We knew there was a grand jury. We knew they had canvassed for video in the area, but they never arrested him, like you mentioned. And everybody sort of questioned this in terms of, yes, she was in his Tesla. It was his car. Why is he not arrested quickly? And he wasn't, and we don't have an answer as to why, but we do know that he had been the focus of this investigation because of the relationship, because of his Tesla, and months later, we now have this arrest.
And we're looking at some of that video right there. The body was found in that impound lot, but the car was found not in that impound lot. It was towed there after being parked somewhere in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah, so they found her body in September, but authorities do believe that she was killed sometime in the spring. So her body had been in that frunk of the Tesla for a long time. It actually was discovered because it smelled so bad in that car and in that the tow yard. Someone essentially just walking by noticed a really horrible smell, and that's how authorities found her body. It had been decomposed. It was in horrible shape, and she was identified through forensics, you know, so it wasn't like they were able to get a lot of clues from the body. So that's probably also a reason why it took investigators so long, because it's hard to piece together that information when you have a body that has been sitting in the summer in Los Angeles in the frunk of a car for months and months and months. And so they were trying to obviously piece everything together. Hopefully we'll get more information, because all we knew was that they had some sort of relationship, but we don't know a lot of what led us here.
Yeah, and yeah, this is one of those cases. It's a high-profile case in Los Angeles. LAPD is very tight-lipped, no suspects named, and yet on the side, on social media, all online, like there are thousands and thousands of people that are following this case very closely and start their own investigation. So I imagine that complicates things. There's going to be some truth to some of what people have found. There's going to be some confusion.
And hopefully we'll get those details on Monday, because if we have charging documents, we'll have some of the evidence that police are actually looking into. And we did get some information from sources, but you're right, LAPD was very tight-lipped in terms of what actually happened here.
Yeah, hopefully some resolution soon. Camila Bernal, thank you so very much. And coming up in the future of everything, there's this influencer you might have seen on your feeds. He's been going viral for exposing AI chatbots' imperfections. Even got the attention of OpenAI's Sam Altman. We talk to Husk IRL coming up next. Bro, you are so freaking smart.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, seriously.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Are you on this tomorrow?
I don't know this literally.
Probably. Okay, yeah. So, all right. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Man, that was a close one. Okay, guys. Pretty wild. Let's see. I know. She was so young. And then there's that video of her, you know, she lived out in the IE, and there's that video of her walking down the street. It's the last time anybody saw her. Unfortunately, Tina, yeah, it's horrific. Horrific. Doreen, good to see you. All right. Here we go.
Position B.
Position B?
You got 2 minutes.
Position B is here. Okay, cool. All right. Sorry, let me just get this. Husk IRL. Look at, he's right here. Isn't it crazy when you see people that are on your feed all the time and then you see them in a place that's not on your feed and you're like, hard not to fangirl out, but have you seen this guy's stuff?
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny. Yeah. The quicksand one is my favorite.
They're running a mile.
Yeah. Yeah, he's awesome. This is gonna be sick. Do you guys have a favorite of Husk IRL? It's got so many good ones.
120.
1 minute and 20 seconds. Okay, cool. And then how long do we have with our guy? 3 minutes, okay. And then it's a hard out at the end, or do we, okay, cool.
1 minute.
1 minute.
So we're staying at B the whole time.
B the whole time? Okay. Wait, standing the whole time?
B and then sit down during the stoplight.
Got it, okay. Oh man, TikTok said that I reached my limit on TikTok. What is going on? Why do we keep getting... I'm gonna figure out this little whitelist situation. Okay, 30 seconds, guys. All right. Do you guys like this thing? This works, right?
All right. 10.
10 seconds. Okay, here we go.
Future everything.
Future of everything coming up.
Stand by.
And in tonight's Future of Everything, a lot of us use AI to help us with daily stuff now, but is AI as reliable as we think? Well, one person that you might recognize here is putting these chatbots to the test.
For example, the number 8 has an A in it, right in the middle, and it's definitely under 1,000.
Okay, spell that out then.
E-I-G-H-T.
Okay, where's the A?
You're absolutely right. There's no A in that. I slipped there. Let me fix that.
That's Husk IRL, who's gone viral for his back and forth fails with good old artificial intelligence in his videos. Even got a response from OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman. We're going to get into that in just a few minutes here, but let's bring him in. Husk IRL now to talk a little bit more about his videos. Husk, great to see you. Thank you so much for being with us. I mean, hey. I have so many favorites of your videos. Quicksand is top of mind, but I gotta ask, like, what inspired this? Was it an actual fail? And you're like, no, the world's got to see this here.
Before I get into that, you know, I've been thinking of this conversation, and I realize I've been preparing my whole life for this moment, and I'm just excited to dive in.
And I'm stoked to dive in with you, because if there's anybody that can show us how AI doesn't work, it's you. So in preparing for this conversation, like what is the first thing you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I mean, we can go into whatever you were thinking. But yeah, I'm just excited to dive in tonight.
All right, let's take a look at one of your videos testing the timing capabilities of ChatGPT, because this one's pretty wild.
Okay, ready, go.
All right, I've started timing. Just focus on your run, and I'll be here when you get back.
Okay, I'm back.
Welcome back. I've got your time right here. How do you feel about that, Mark?
How long was it? What?
You clocked in at around 10 minutes and 12.
I swear I was faster than that.
Okay, so that's an issue.
Yeah.
Sam Altman actually responded to this one, right? Let's take a look at his reaction here.
Do you need to show that to your product guys?
No, that's a known issue. Maybe another year.
Another year?
Like that works well.
What's that known issue?
That model doesn't have that voice model doesn't have tools to like start a timer or anything like that. But we will add the intelligence into the voice models.
Bro, how are you so good at stumping AI?
I don't really know. I don't know if it's just AI. It might be like real people throughout my life too react pretty similar. But yeah, I feel like I couldn't tell if Sam Altman was pissed. Am I allowed to say pissed?
You're allowed to say pissed, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know if he was pissed, but yeah, it was interesting to see his reaction.
My favorite reaction is the reaction that you're making to us right now as we talk about this, and the same reaction that you make to artificial intelligence when it clearly shows its limitations. Husk IRL, man, I'm a huge, huge fan of you. Thank you so very much. I cannot wait to see what you post next. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gotti Schwartz. We'll see you here tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned to NBC News Now. And yeah, he's like doing this. Cool. That was awesome. I love his stuff. Follow him. He's amazing. And guys, that was a great show. We will see you tomorrow. And thanks for watching. Tell your friends, but not too many.